Oh boy, it's 7 p.m. and I took a nap that lasted way too long. You know what that means. It's time to talk about games. Much better. Hi, my name is Bodhi. I'm an uncle who yaps about games. So I was streaming today, and one of my viewers asked me what the easiest build to start out in Path of Exile is. Now, there are a myriad of builds out there, but the ones that make the campaign easiest don't really have to worry about gear too much. So thinking about it for a bit and discussing it for a bit, I came up with a couple answers. First of all, there's the Hollow Palm Ice Strike Monk build, that you are a melee class that obliterates enemies and don't even have to worry about a melee weapon. But second of all, I wanted to go over another monk build which I had an absolute blast obliterating the entire campaign with, and that would be a Wyvern Invoker Monk. Right from Act 1, you are just blasting through the areas. Now, you are a little squishy at times, but we'll get to solving that later. But the Invoker Monk from Act 1 all the way to the end of the interludes and the start of maps just felt so good. So, let's start with Act 1. By the way, all the clips for this build were taken from my Twitch, which you can click down in the description below to watch me live, failing fantastically. As a disclaimer, for the most of this video, I was following a build outline made by Ronarray, which the link to his build guide and mine, as well as his YouTube, will be down in the description below. He is seriously one of my favorite content creators for POE2, and this is one of the most fun builds I think I have tried, at least this league. Okay, so, Dragon Monk. Where do we start? This build really does feel amazing from the get-go. You do your tutorial area, you sell all your stuff, you grab yourself a talisman, and then you're bear mode until you get your first level 3 skill gem. So yeah, just swipe, Furious Slam, all that normal stuff. And as soon as you have enough strength and slot in that first level 3 skill gem, in that tongue, he was Dovahkiin, Dragonborn! Skyrim came out in 2012. That was 14 years ago. Feel old yet? So, the biggest issue with this build is that it is primarily melee. But later on, our auto attacks, or rend, is going to be so massive that it's going to basically cleave everything on our screen anyway, so I still wouldn't really count that as a drawback. Go ahead and smack the Rotten Druid, smack the Countess, smack Draven, and smack Lachlan too, for good measure. And you know what? Go ahead and smack Diablo 4 too. Paying for access to the goddamn Paladin. What do I look like? Someone who has money? In this economy? Seriously, if my face doesn't tell you how easy these bosses are, well, you probably need some glasses. So at this point you might be wondering, well, hey, are we just holding left click for the entirety of the campaign? At this point I had kind of forgotten that we have access to a skill called Wing Blast, which lets us generate power charges whenever we heavy stun a rare or unique mob. Now, if you're wondering why do power charges matter, well, if we go ahead and read the skill description for Rend here, it can consume power charges to make it deal additional lightning damage, have decreased attack speed, but be way, way bigger. We'll have a solution for running around and getting power charges later, but for now you can just use Wing Blast to heavy stun your unique mobs and get bonus Rend damage against your single target. I will warn you, I don't think this build is very hardcore friendly. You are pretty squishy early on, and that could be either a skill or gear issue, but, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Alright, Executioner's dead, and we get our first level skill gem, which, when we get to the manor, is going straight into Devour. Now, Sean from the past, would you mind explaining what Devour does?
Hey guys, in case you're wondering how Devour works.
Thanks. So with the power charges from Devour, our rend will go from this. That's quite small. Ooh, that's pretty large. I was feeling pretty squishy, so we fix our gear with some gambling, then we smack the Candle Boy up, and now it's time to show Count Geonor what a true shapeshifter can do. At this point, I was pretty sure that our damage would start falling off because we're just holding left click on stuff, but you know what? I'll just let the clip speak for itself. Hey, that's pretty good. Apparently, some people struggle with this boss, but as I so famously said, I sat there and held left click, and he died. So yeah, Act 1 was a breeze, but would Act 2 be the same story? Or would we fall prey to me not paying attention and eating more glue than an unsupervised toddler in arts and crafts? That brings us to Act 2. Today's subject, slavery. So this build is kind of just more of the same until we get our very first level 7 skill gem, and that'll give us our single target for, well, the remainder of this character. For moving around maps, rend until we have a corpse, devour it, make smacky smacky big, and then keep killing to your heart's content. For single target, it's also pretty simple. We rend until a target is primed for stun, and until we have our level 7 skill gem and oil breath, we just use wing blast to gain our power charges, and then keep rending. Once you have oil breath, it's a different story. Instead of spending those power charges on empowering our rend, we instead use them to channel oil breath. Oil breath will consume power charges while it's channeling to get bonus lightning damage, and that shit deletes bosses. Oh, and in case you don't know what being primed for stun is, there's this little bar at the top of the enemy here that'll fill up as you're dealing damage to it and building up stun. Once that bar changes color, or there's this little orb on the guy, you can use your wing blast to heavy stun the enemy. At this point, I was on day 2 of playing this build, and I was still completely befuddled by how, well, lucrative it felt during the campaign. So I talked about this a bit on stream, but I genuinely love how GGG designed all of the, shape-shifting classes. I think they feel wonderful, look great, and they're a wonderful example of how the combo system that GGG wants in POE2 can be implemented without being a complete hassle. I seriously hope they take a good look at a lot of the spear and mace skills because, it seems like they've learned a lot about what players enjoy doing with these setup and payoff skills as opposed to when they first design those, well, I would say classes, but it's not really that, those skills. I think if they do a little bit of redesigning, they could seriously make those flow and feel a lot better. But maybe that's a topic for another video. Anyway, by this point, you know the drill. Oh man, I bit my tongue. Anyway, by this point, you know the drill. Smack, smack, devour, smack, smack, devour. Gameplay loop, keep going. However, if you ever notice your damage starting to fall off, packs are taking longer to clear, your boss damage just isn't quite where it be. Your boss damage just isn't quite where it needs to be, remember that you are a melee class and talismans are melee weapons. So even though your oil breath is kind of like a ranged attack, it kind of could look like a spell, it still uses your talisman for damage. So in terms of stats on our talisman, we're looking for anything with any kind of added physical, added elemental, that being fire, lightning, cold, whatever, and then possibly plus the level of attack skills. Because we're using elemental armament support, and by the way, upgrade those to level 2 as soon as you can, it's just more damage, it really doesn't matter what kind of elemental damage we have on our talisman because it's just going to get bolstered anyway. So having all 3 or just multiple types of flat elemental damage will just hella increase our DPS. Now for probably the only issue I had with this build through the campaign. Survivability. I felt extremely squishy through a lot of the campaign. It took me until Act 4 to swap over fully to Energy Shield. But if we're talking about it logically, you could probably swap over to full ES around the middle of Act 2 and still be okay. Just make sure you get a little life on your gear, as high ES as possible on everything, and you should be good to go. And yeah, I had a tendency to get one shot a lot between looking at chat and me being a dumb, unmedicated ADHD person. I did genuinely die a lot during this campaign. And seriously, dying is okay. Honestly, I feel like it's very stigmatized against in Path of Exile 2 and POE1 because this game is hard, right? Like, there's the get good mentality in Path of Exile. But seriously, unless you're playing like a hardcore character, or if you're late game farming maps with only one portal, or really trying to push your level above 94, dying kinda doesn't matter. Anyway, aside the point, our first ascendancy node is going into either the bonus cold damage or bonus lightning damage on the evoker tree. This is just going to be more flat damage for us to scale. Now, I had Herald Device on this entire time because I'm a stupid, dummy, idiot person. I would highly recommend using Herald of Thunder instead. Throughout the campaign, it's going to make your clear feel a lot better. We're shocking people all the time with our bonus lightning damage from Rend, so, do that. Alright, and with the Ascendancy and Jiman Ra done with, let's move on to Act 3. fucking hate Act 3. Like, it's just boring jungle stuff with really long maps and like no checkpoints, and it's just, here's a zone that has 3 exits. Here's another zone that has 3 exits. Backtrack a bunch, go, and we're skipping Act 3. We don't talk about Act 3, no. All right, we're gonna briefly touch now on Act 4. Here's where I would put footage of Act 4 if I had some. Twitch decided to not let me download my VOD, also mute my VOD, and also, I don't know why Twitch does what it does. So yeah, as much as I would love to put footage of my favorite act in this video, I can't do that. I guess I could b-roll some other footage of another character, but that just doesn't seem right. Anyway, please enjoy this wonderful interlude footage while I rant about this build. Here is where I probably struggled the most out of the campaign stuff, and a lot of that, again, is just from me not paying attention to my gear. Sticking with armor and energy shield just didn't feel right for a build like this. You never have enough armor for it to properly mitigate the physical damage, and you're always taking damage, so, I mean, your melee, you're always taking damage, so your energy shield never really has time to regen. About halfway through Act 4, I swapped fully into energy shield. Now, we are on the monk side of the tree, so there's a bunch of things for evasion, and we can make our way up to the sorceress/witch part here and nab some energy shield nodes there, too, if we're feeling like we just want that extra bolster of HP. And let me tell you, once I swapped, it felt like night and day. My effective HP was just miles higher than it was before I swapped to full ES. And from there on, it was kind of just the rinse and repeat thing of using Rend to kill things, using Devour to get your power charges, and then, you know, oil breathing bosses. And then we do the exact same thing all the way through the interludes. Now, one thing that people, I guess, don't really realize is you can tackle the interludes in whatever order you want. Personally, I like to grab that spirit early because, 1, that boss is a bitch at higher levels, but 2, free spirit. Also, at some point, you can pop on convalescence. You can do this a lot earlier than I did because I just, you know, was messing around with the build when I was leveling and didn't realize that this is something that, while we're melee, will make it so our energy shield keeps regenerating when we take damage. Yeah, it does have a cooldown, which is a little awkward to play around, but it's still really good. All right. Now, post-game. This is where the fun begins. Okay, so this is where a pretty big swap happens for our build. At level 64, we get our 4th slot for Rend. This is where I would say go ahead and swap out Herald of Thunder for Herald of Ice. Because we have that 4th slot on our Rend, we can now slot in Embitter Support. This is going to make 75% of our damage turn into cold damage instead, which means we can now freeze people, and freezing people means that our Herald of Ice will explode them, and then we can clear packs. We're also going to go ahead and slot in Armor Break on Herald of Ice and Armor Explosion on Herald of Ice as well. That way, when our Herald of Ice procs, it also explodes armor, which also in turn explodes, and we end up with these big screen clears. Secondarily, once you hit 65, the question on your mind at this point might be, okay, I'm shattering corpses with Herald of Ice. How am I supposed to devour corpses that aren't there anymore? Well, this is a little tech that I first saw in the Falling Thunder one-shot build. So, there's a tech with the support gem called Culmination Support. It lets you add combo to any melee skill in the game that doesn't already have a combo associated with it. If you slot in Culmination along with Alieth's Chimes, what that allows it to do is whenever you use that move that has the combo built up, it'll give you a chance to get power charges based off of how many combo points were spent with that skill. In layman's terms, this just means we smack stuff with Rend a couple of times, it builds up combo on Pounce, and then we pounce and get power charges for free. And we have mobility on top of it, so you know, 2 birds, 1 stone, all that jazz. I'm just gonna gush a little bit, guys. Let's talk about how this build feels to play. The entirety of the campaign is smooth as fuck. Even for a dumbass like me. Deleting bosses is flat out hilarious. Whether that means rending them to death early game and watching them die in 10 seconds flat to your dragon just swiping away at them, or just spewing oil at them and watching them die faster than an ADC being dove under tower at 7 minutes. I genuinely enjoyed this build through and through, and it is becoming one of my favorites to map and farm with. If you have any other builds that you have enjoyed, want showcased, or made yourself and don't have any other buddies to share with, trust me, I used to be there. Well, then drop them down in the comments, or you can stop by stream and tell me you want me to try out a build. I love this game with a passion and cannot wait to see what GGG does with it in the future. For now, though, do all the YouTube stuff. I'm really trying my best to grow this channel, figure out a unique form of content for Path of Exile that I don't really see a whole lot of other people doing. For now, do all the normal YouTube stuff. You know, like, subscribe. I hate saying that stuff, but algorithm, you know. And I am seriously trying to carve out a niche for myself in the POE2 community and find my own style for making videos like this. So if you enjoyed me ranting about a build I enjoyed, well, then you might also enjoy this video next, where I talk about the state of the Vault Temple, which has since been changed a little bit, but I still found the video entertaining to make, so maybe you'll enjoy watching it too. Alright, with that, I'll see you there. Oh, I'm dead. It happens.